Hello, Java Challenger. I have here today Bruno Borges. So Bruno Borges is a Java champion and he's a principal product manager at Microsoft. He's focused on the Java OpenJDK and he has over 20 years of experience in the software development industry. He's originally from Brazil and moved to Vancouver in Canada. He's also a worldwide speaker and I'm very happy to have you here, Bruno. How are you?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's been quite a journey so far to get to Vancouver, Canada. And yeah, happy to talk and share my experience, share stories and whatnot, and let's see how this goes.
Awesome. Very excited for our conversation. I'm sure that we're going to have a lot of valuable career insights for Java developers. So, Bruno, my first question, the question I ask all Java experts I invite here, can you tell me more about your career trajectory? I'm super curious to know what were the challenges you faced, what are the career lessons you can share with the Java Challengers audience. I'm super interested in understanding what are those lessons, how you can overcome those career challenges, how you can become better and better as a Java developer.
Yeah, happy to share that. I would say career started a long time ago when actually somebody asked me recently what was my first job. And to their surprise, my first job was not what is a common thing here in Canada. Most people in Canada have a first job in working at a food chain or retail. They go work at a retail shop or a restaurant. They go work like those entry level jobs, very mechanical, very here's a task, just do it as often as possible, as fast as possible. My career started working with computers. My first job was already with computers, not in the sense where I was working with the computer itself, but I was just using the computer as a tool. My first job was digitalization of documents. I just had to run papers through a scanner and just turn them into PDFs as fast as possible, as clean as possible, and then we would be able to have a digital copy of all customers' documents. That job was, quite honest, very boring in that I got, it's an entry level job. But to some degree, my first job was working with computers, right? Here's the scanner, here's a computer, click, here's a keyboard. So it kind of very different from the majority. And even in Brazil today, like I think the entry level job is not with computers. And I had that privilege. I mean, the fact that my dad used to work with computers kind of does help with my trajectory. So he was who helped me find my first job and put me in this trajectory. So I got to give credit to him a lot. But then after that, yeah, my second, third job was already with programming. I learned how to program at home. I learned how to program Excel spreadsheets, and I learned how to program scripts for IRC clients. And that's where I learned the basics of programming. And then from there on, I just went into Java programming thanks to an internship at a small company. And that's how my career started in the late like 1999, 2000. That's when my career as a programmer started. Around 2003, I was like a full-time employee, getting a good paycheck, and was started to get involved in open source, started to get involved in conferences and whatnot. So I was having lots of opportunities to showcase and participate in open source development and participating in Java user groups and things like that. So I was able to get a lot of visibility, which helped me move from a small hometown in South Brazil and move to Sao Paulo to a bigger company. My career as a software developer, as a programmer, kind of ended when in 2012 I got a job at Oracle Latin America, and I got this job as a product manager. That's where my full-time career as a software developer ended. And today I still program, but mostly as a hobby or as experimentation or as part of my job as a PM, but not on a daily basis, 9 to 5. So I still love to program. Sometimes I get the advent of code at the end of the year and I go through some exercises. And I think that helps keep the passion for the area. And also, freaks me out a little bit sometimes when I get this problem in programming and I cannot resolve because I don't have some fundamentals, and it's tricky. But that's how you learn, I guess, challenging yourself and going through problems that you have never seen before. Luckily, these days, if you have a problem and you feel like you cannot learn that fast, just go to ChatGPT, get an answer, and then you dive into the answer and you try to make some sense and understand what that answer is about, and even use AI to help you explain the answer so you learn from that exercise. So I think the trajectory that I had in programming was very focused. Here's a problem, just go learn how to solve that problem. But today, with AI, you can everybody can have this trajectory. It's like very open, where so many more possibilities to learn and experiment that I find quite interesting. Yeah, that's my trajectory, like the bigger picture. But of course, we can dive into more details if you like.
Sure. In what year again you became a product manager?
That was in 2012.
2012. And how
Yeah.
was this move for you? Because I know this is a big fear for many software developers to be away from coding. And that's something that prevents developers to go to another area because they love so much to be coding, to be close to the technical. So how was this transition for you? Was difficult to make a decision? Were you thinking, oh, I'm going to be away from the technical side, it's going to be different? How was your decision process? Because many developers struggle when they have to make the decision to go to a more the management side and be away from the technical side. So how was your thought process to make a decision and say, hey, yes, I'm going there?
Yeah, it's a tricky question for my particular case. At the time, I got this job referral. Somebody referred me to this position at Oracle as a product manager. I never worked as a product manager, never had any experience with it. I had no clue what a product manager was at the time. And honestly, sometimes I still feel like I don't know exactly what a product manager does these days. But at the time, I wasn't worried about the job role itself. I only cared about a few things. One was the opportunity to work at a major company, a major software vendor company, Oracle. I was interested in being close to the Java team at Oracle. My role was not to work with the Java team at Oracle, but it was, I was at Oracle. Becoming an Oracle employee would give me access to get close to that team, and other teams at Oracle, like the Oracle database team, the Java EE team, and WebLogic team, and so many other teams that have produced great software in Oracle's history. And a lot of the Sun Microsystem employees were at Oracle, because I think when I joined Oracle, it was just maybe 2-3 years after Oracle bought Sun Microsystems. So it was very recent, that acquisition. So when I got to my job interview, my then manager asked me a few questions, and he was most interested about like my interest in inform customers and inform developers about Oracle products and Oracle technologies. So my goal was to be an outbound product manager, a product manager that just do outside external activities. And at the time, I was doing conferences. I was speaking at conferences. I was engaged with Java user groups. I was engaged with the community, and on a very regular basis. So I felt, you know what? Kind of, it's the job that I'm doing today, but for free. And Oracle is going to pay me to do that job instead, right? So it was a great opportunity. The paycheck was also good, but it was not actually the primary goal. The primary goal was like, okay, how do I accelerate my career path thanks to this job at Oracle? And that's what drove me to that role.
Yeah, it makes sense. Like to be close to the Java team. And so I think then your role was a bit different. It was kind of a developer advocate role because you were giving talks. Like it wasn't exactly like you were managing a project, but you were, kind of a hybrid role where you were also promoting this product, right?
Yeah, to some degree, that was the activities that I was performing at the time were very much what developer advocacy does today. I worked very closely with marketing. I worked very closely with sales enablement. I worked very closely with customers and product development teams, sharing feedback and pointing them out to potential solutions. So it was a very unique opportunity to learn and to grow. So I would say, yeah, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that shift at that time. And I would probably still be happy with coding full time, but I think I do this dynamic of my job today where one day I'm coding a sample application, a demonstration, the other day I'm preparing slides, the other day I'm doing meetings with product teams to discuss feedback and product roadmap. The other day I'm actually involved in a customer problem for evaluating some of the products and services that Microsoft has today. So at that time, like it was pretty much the same thing for Oracle. So not everything. I appreciate that not every developer likes this style of work, but yeah, I've met other folks who prefer this kind of work. And product management is a great path for a software engineer who wants to continue to spend time coding, but also doing other things. And yeah, it's a very viable trajectory career-wise.
Yeah. What product were you focused on when you were in Oracle?
So I joined the Fusion middleware team. Fusion middleware comprised of Oracle WebLogic, Oracle SOA Suite, Oracle Web Content Management, and Oracle Coherence. And there were maybe a few other products in the portfolio, but those were the main ones. And I was the PM in Latin America representing Oracle WebLogic and Oracle Coherence. And that gave me that access to the Java team because Coherence was this tool for distributed in-memory data grid, something like Redis is today. And it was a completely Java-based product, and so was WebLogic. So being the PM for WebLogic in Latin America, representing the product, gave me access to the Java EE team and Oracle almost like instantaneously. And because both products required Oracle Java, that also gave me access to the Java team because of those products. And very quickly, I also became sort of the regional representative for customer engagements that required conversations around Java in general. And I was put into meetings with banks and insurance companies that were big consumers of Java. And I was literally, helping them navigate changes in Oracle Java, like version X to version Y, and how they modernize their code base. So that work was very exciting. Lots of travel, lots of meetings with customers, lots of going to the actual customer site and office and work with them in whiteboarding, architectural diagrams. It was a very fun job.
That's amazing to be close to the Java team. So how many developers were working in the Java programming language? Do you remember approximately? And where were them around the world as well?
Oracle at the time it still has lots of developers. I cannot say the number, but yeah, easy hundreds of developers across the world. Imagine a company that makes billions of dollars out of like revenue for a particular product. That's Oracle business. Lots of startups. I remember at the time, lots of startups were making less revenue than a single product at Oracle. So that's how big the business is for them, right? And all over the place, Europe, America, Latin America, Asia, all over the place. Any product that has a large number of engineers working on will have a distributed effort for many reasons, right? You have regional expertise, right? You have very core engineers in Czech Republic. You have lots of core engineers lots of support engineers in Latin America. You have lots of in North America, tech leads in Europe. Like you gotta figure out that certain areas in the world will have different expertise. Everybody's capable of doing the same thing, but I think due to economics and global economics and how trades between countries work and cost of labor, etc., they kind of organize, major companies kind of organize their workforce in different strategic areas across the globe. So yeah, just like Oracle and Microsoft and Amazon, Google, any major company today, any large company will have this distributed workforce for many reasons. And that was not different for Oracle back then.
Amazing. And how was your move from Brazil to Vancouver? What was the most challenging part? How was your decision as well to move to another country? Was it easy? What was your thought process when making the move?
But there's a part of this story that I haven't shared yet. Around 2015, I moved to the United States to work for Oracle US.
Okay.
And that's an
That's
interesting story to share, because I think many folks who are in a particular country today and they are thinking about moving to a different country tomorrow. Here's how I did that transition from Brazil to the United States first. When I joined Oracle in 2012, I literally told my then manager, on our first interview, my first meeting with my then manager, in the office, face to face, he was like, "Why do we want to join Oracle? Why? What do you aim? Next year's. What is your goal?" And I was like, I could have gone with the default answer. I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know. It's 3, 5 years. Who knows? Maybe my dad. I'm dad by then. I don't know. But no, I gave a very specific answer. I said, "Look, Oracle is a great company. Oracle Latin America is a great company. But I actually want to be involved in product engineering to some degree. I want to be involved in shaping products. I want to be involved in driving, product development. So my goal is to actually move to the United States, not necessarily with the intent of living in the United States, but with the intent of working at Oracle US, where I would be even closer to the product development teams." I think at the time, there wasn't this push by social media influencers to immigrate to countries, right? Today, you go on Instagram and you have lots of people selling how to integrate to a particular country, selling the dream of moving out of your home country. And at the time, it wasn't my intent. I didn't have the intent of leaving Brazil for a better country. My plan was to leave Brazil for a better career opportunity, not because of the country that I was at, but because I wanted to do something that I knew in Brazil I couldn't do. That was the main problem to me, and the main reason I wanted to go to Oracle US. If the Oracle headquarters was in Mexico, I would have said I want to go to Mexico because that's the headquarters of Oracle, or Portugal. I don't care. I want to do cool stuff working with the smart people so I can learn from them no matter where, right? And then my manager replied, he said, "All right, that's a very specific goal." And he said, "Look, my goal for having you here is this." And I was like, "Yeah, I can help you with that." And then he said, "Okay, you've helped me with this thing for the next 2, 3 years, and I'll help you with your thing after that." We had that agreement. And as soon as I completed 2 years, I went to him and I said, "Look, remember our conversation 2 years ago? I've done all these things. I've achieved all these goals. I made him and his group look good. I helped with that. I wasn't the only one helping his team look good, but I contributed to that. I contributed to the success of the team. I contributed to his success, and he was happy with that. So I reminded him of our verbal agreement, and he said, "Yeah, let's work on it." So he started working. He had a chat with his VP in the US, and we started figuring out a role for me in Oracle US so I could work at the global team instead of just the Latin America team. I would work same group, same division, but at the Oracle US team, like global presence. And that's how I got to the US. After that, I continued to do similar things. I went into even more developer advocacy activities at the time, working with marketing, working with product development and product marketing on a daily basis. I helped organize events like Oracle Code, Oracle Code One, Oracle Java One. I helped with that. Oracle Cloud World, I was engaged on all these events. Regional events, we did many of those. Customer relationship, community relationship. Yeah, everything that an outbound PM does, I was doing, but at an even higher global scale. And I continued coding. I continued doing presentations and demos. I continued going to user groups, doing conferences, preparing slides, material, documentation, product feedback, all of that. So it was a great time. I honestly, sometimes I miss that time of very dynamic work. Today, my work is less dynamic compared to the Oracle work, but it's still as exciting. So it was a good opportunity. And then moving from Oracle to Canada, from the US to Canada, was similar. I got this call, somebody saying, "Hey, Bruno, somebody referred you to Microsoft and would like to talk to you." Okay, cool, let's talk. And we had conversations and interview. And in the end, I was being asked to join Microsoft to lead the Java advocacy team for Azure. And I felt, wow, that's quite the opportunity, to be the Java lead for advocacy at Microsoft. Not, like one of the most anti-Java companies historically, right? Not these days, but historically was one of the most anti-Java companies. I mean, they sued Sun Microsystem many years ago. They developed their own language to compete with Java, C#. And yeah, there are lots of stories. But at the time, they said, look, honestly, we want to grow the cloud business just like any cloud vendor. So we really don't care if a developer is using C# or Java or Python or JavaScript. What we want is to get more Java developers on Azure. And that's a very fair business proposition. And I said, yeah, I'm game. Sounds like a great opportunity. I mean, being a Java guy at Microsoft, to help the field, to help sellers, to help customers, to help partners, to help marketing in a Java message sounds like a great opportunity. So I took it. And it's been great since then. The only thing that was odd on this move from Oracle to Microsoft was that at the time at Oracle, I still didn't have my green card, my permanent visa in the United States. So my employment was tied to Oracle. So that little detail kind of required me to figure out a way to join Microsoft, but not in the United States because of visa requirements and challenges. I mean, we probably could have worked it out in some ways, but it would have taken a long time. It would have taken months instead of, I think the whole process took 4 or 6 weeks from initial conversation to final agreements. I think if we had gone with the process of let's get a new visa, let's get a green card process, whatever, I think it would have taken 3 months, if not more, to go from initial conversation to actual visa being issued. So the solution to that problem was, well, Microsoft headquarters is in Seattle area. Which country and city is close to that area that is not United States? Well, that's Vancouver. And that was the plan. I came to Canada to work initially for 1 year. And then after 1 year, apply to a new visa to go back to the US, which is a transfer visa, employee named transfer visa, which is almost like instantaneously granted to transferees. But lots of personal things happened. My wife and I ended up having our second child here in Canada at pretty much at the same time of our immigration conversations with the immigration firm lawyer. So we decided, you know what? let's just stay in Canada for a little bit longer, and then we revisit this conversation about moving back to the United States. And it's been 6 years. So all of this happening around 2018, 2017, 2018. And since then, we live in Canada, and we are happy for being here.
Wow, such a story. Yeah, well, Canada is an amazing country as well. I'm like pretty much sure that education there as well is great. So for your kids, it's gonna be an amazing place as well. So yeah, it's gonna depend on you if you want to move back to the US. But
Yeah, so far we have no plans. At least for the next 4 years, we have no plans of moving to the United States.
amazing. Very good. So you mentioned something about organizing one of the biggest Java conferences in the world, Java One. How was the experience of organizing the Java One conference?
Well, I helped in some areas, right? I mean, it's a major company. It's a major conference. At the time, it was marketing team that was doing all of that. I think today, this year's edition of Java One 2025, it's actually the Java product team who's organizing Java One in the Oracle office. But back then, it was a combination of the Java team and marketing team. And it's a great experience organizing any event, or even if in my case, just collaborating with the organization of the event, just, feedback conversations and meetings of brainstorming ideas. All of that is really cool. And anybody who has the opportunity to collaborate in an event should definitely take it. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of hours that you have to put in, but amount of learning that you get is tremendous, valuable. Would I be able to execute an event today by myself? Definitely not. You don't run an event by yourself alone. It's really hard. There's a lot of things to do, and many things have to happen in parallel. So it's not a single person job. It's a team effort. And recognizing where you can contribute to organizing an event and also your limitations, so you can trust other people who have the skills to do certain parts of that job, is extremely important. So I was in no way organizing any conference that I participate in collaboration at Oracle or even now at Microsoft, but having the opportunity to participate in collaboration and the ideation of events, that's really cool. And I enjoyed that.
Awesome. And how is the market in Vancouver for Java developers?
Yeah, talking about market, Vancouver is a weird city technology-wise. There's a lot of business here for real estate, construction, law firms, tourism, import and export, common industries. Tech-wise, there's a lot of gaming studios in Vancouver. Montreal is another city. The majority of gaming studios are in Montreal. Vancouver is, I would say, is tricky. Are there jobs? Probably. Are they very hard to find? Yes, very hard to find, because the majority of tech jobs are actually in Toronto and Montreal, like I said. So coming to Vancouver is difficult because it's a small town. I think the population of Vancouver itself, the city of Vancouver, is maybe a couple 100,000 people. And the whole metro Vancouver is maybe 1.5 million, 2 million people tops. I mean, it's quite small. And that is in 15 cities around Vancouver. Like you put all of that together, it's small. I don't think it even makes 2 million people. Maybe I'm wrong. You can fact check that later on Google. So the main benefit of Vancouver compared to the rest of Canada is the weather, is the geography. It's the best weather of Canada. I mean, I'm right now looking at my window. Actually, I'm going to shift the camera here. So that's my backyard, and it's all green. There's no snow, and we are in January, right?
Oh, it looks nice.
So there hasn't been any snow since the beginning of this winter. There might be a snowstorm next week, but it will probably all be melted by 5 days later. So everybody who comes to Canada would love to live in Vancouver, but The market is challenging here. So I got the privilege of coming to Vancouver with a job offer, right? A lot of folks that I've known came to Vancouver without a job offer. So they had to go through different path of finding a job and working at jobs that were not what they were looking for just to stay here. But if you go to Toronto, if you go to Montreal, if you're in the gaming industry as a developer, even if you're a back-end developer, I mean, lots of games need servers, need data servers or big data, knowledge with Spark, Hadoop, Pinot, Elasticsearch, whatever big data technology these days is used by gaming studios due to the huge amount of data they have to process, almost like real time. Kafka is another example of a technology that is heavily used. So I think in general, I strongly suggest people who are considering Canada to look at all opportunities, not just Vancouver. But there are opportunities; they're just a little bit hard to find.
Yeah, so yeah, for sure, Canada is better for the gaming industry because, like you said, the big game companies, they are there, and it might be a little bit more challenging if you're a Java developer, because I would guess you would find more opportunities as a developer with C++ or C Sharp or as a DevOps engineer.
Yeah, but again, like big data stuff is huge. So having some understanding of big data, Scala development, I think that's a differentiation for the Canadian tech market, game market.
Mhm.
Data science is another area. So if you work with data science, that's a great opportunity as well. I mean, you gotta try. I'm no expert in looking at the job market, but what I see from groups that I'm involved in, WhatsApp and LinkedIn, there are opportunities. They're just a little bit hard to find. And once you do find, you have to be good at selling yourself to that opportunity, presenting yourself as a strong candidate. That's why maybe participating in open source and being visible online is a differentiator. And also, proving through your resume that you have the skills. And the best way, in my opinion, to prove that you have these skills is by, number one, showing the outcome of your projects in previous roles. It's not about what you know, but what you achieved with what you know. I think that is one thing that a lot of engineers miss in their resumes. They think about, oh, I know this and this. Well, yeah, I can find 15 people that know this and this. The real question is, what have you done with knowing this and this? What were the outcomes of that knowledge that you have? What have you achieved? What have you developed? And what was the business outcome for your employer or for your customers by leveraging your skill set, your knowledge, right? And I think if a developer can write that down in a resume, that's powerful. And the second thing, maybe open source contributions, but honestly, I think there are better ways. And not everyone works in open source projects. Not everyone has opportunity to work in open source projects. So think about the outcomes first, and then think about extras like open source contribution.
Yeah, that's a really interesting one to me about highlighting the outcomes, because that's something that my mentees struggle with. For them, it's difficult to find the highlights and the outcomes from what they've done during their careers. So, what would be your advice for developers to find those career highlights so that they show this outcome in a clear way in their resumes, in their LinkedIn profiles, so that they stand out for companies?
I'll give you an example. We have this engineer in our group who works as a DevOps engineer. Like he manages our build infrastructure. He manages our VMs and he manages our build pipelines. His major outcome in the past couple of years was, hey, I was able to automate the manual tests. Like He automated tasks that were manual, like unit tests automated, integration tests automated, but then you have manual tests that you have to actually go with the mouse, open the UI and click, right? He was able to automate that. He was able to automate and experiment with technologies that would actually drive the mouse and navigate around. And there are technologies today that do that. So the outcome was he enabled the team to spend less time doing the manual test, to spend more time fixing the issues identified by the tests, which reduced the time to deliver the final build. So if I'm spending 10 hours to do the manual test and then 10 hours to fix the issues, I'm spending total 20 hours. But if I can automate the manual tests, now I have supposedly 20 hours to fix the issues, right? But hopefully we will have less issues and we'll have even less time will be spent testing manually, which means less opportunity for mistakes in the actual testing process of those manual tests. So less false positives in issues, which means the time spent fixing the issues will be lower than 20 hours for sure, and hopefully even lower than 10 hours from the initial 10-hour budget. So the release process, which used to take 20 hours, now takes 8 hours. And here's the catch. Okay, what do we do with those 12 hours that now we have available? Well, you do product development. You do customer support. You do documentation. You do more automation. You do more quality. You go back to your backlog so you can address more issues to the next release. So the next release can have 10 issues fixed instead of only 5, because now you have more time to work on the backlog. So that was the business outcome. The business was he could write in his resume, I know Python, I know Selenium, I know Playwright, I know how to automate things. Yeah, that's great. But where was that useful? He has that story now. He can say what was the business outcome of his knowledge, of his experimentation with those technologies, and why it's important to put that in practice. So I think we're shifting from what I know to what I produce is extremely important in anyone's career, in anyone's resume. I can go and write on my resume, hey, I know how to optimize my C++ code to go faster. That's great. Lots of engineers probably can do that. But a better outcome is I helped and convinced my leadership of optimizing this code, which resulted in a reduction of cost of 20% of our engine in production. So now instead of spending $2 million per year running this engine, now it costs $1 million, so 50% reduction. That's great. That is the business outcome of the performance optimization. Not just, we went from 20 transactions per second to 40 transactions per second. Well, show me the business value. For example, some products can go faster, but if that doesn't have any impact in customer benefit, why did you spend time building that optimization if the customer does not benefit from that optimization? And sometimes that happens. Sometimes we think, well, if I optimize this code, customer can run 40 transactions per second instead of 20. But the real question is, does the customer has volume to go that fast? Right? I like the analogy of cars for this one. Every computer problem can be sometimes compared to cars. What's the point of having a fast car if the road is limited at 100 miles per hour? So optimizing for the sake of optimizing doesn't matter. What is the real benefit here? Sometimes it's not about optimizing the engine to go faster, but it's about optimizing the engine to spend less gasoline, right? That is the cost savings. So show that business outcome, show the value of your contribution, not just the knowledge that you have with your contribution. That would be my main takeaway here.
Awesome. So do you think developers should have a proof that they enhance the performance, or that they helped adopt a technology to save costs? Or do you think that in an interview it's enough to explain how it happened and what was the benefit? So what are your thoughts regarding that? Because, in companies, there is sometimes, well, I think the vast majority of the companies, there is the NDA contract,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah, I get that.
you can't have a proof. So what are your thoughts regarding that?
There is some power in storytelling. There is some power in being able to convey a story that triggers the listener to really understand what you're saying. So while many developers will work at projects that are not public, cannot be shared, you can still tell a story that highlights the key points of whatever information you have under NDA. You don't have to be specific. You shouldn't have to show code. You shouldn't have to prove with evidence in a job interview. Here's the report. I got a copy of the report. I mean, that's leakage. You cannot do that. That's proprietary information. You cannot bring a report to your job interview from your previous employer. You're like, that sucks. But you can tell a story. So the question is, are you able to tell a story? Are you able to tell how your work have had an impact in the business? Do you know the business in the first place, right? And sometimes some developers don't even understand where their code is going to be used and why it's going to be used and how it's going to be used and what is the benefit for the customer to just do their job. And that's fine. If they're happy with that, great. But if a developer wants to go higher in their career, they got to open their mind and kind of understand, okay, why am I doing this for? Who am I doing this for? And what is the expected outcome of this thing? And once they have that information, they can tell a story about that. And then whoever is interviewing them will be able, in many cases, to assess, hey, is this story coherent? Does this guy know what he's talking about? Is he able to answer questions, or is he able to be comfortable in saying no to some of the questions because they are, NDA related? And I think any mature developer, any senior developer with good understanding of their employer's business outcomes and expectations and the customer benefits, customer value, should be able to tell that story without going into very specifics. I mean, for example, you shouldn't share very often, you shouldn't share number of users that your system has with some people outside. You cannot go, I mean, if you're just an employer at Uber, an employee at Uber, are you really able to go publicly and say how many users Uber has? It's in the financial report because Uber is a publicly traded company and that's a critical information. But what if it wasn't there? What if you have access to that information, but the CFO and the CEO of the company have decided to not share that information? Are you, the engineer, really in position of sharing that information? You're not. You're not allowed to do that. So same goes with a job interview. In many cases, you won't be able to share specific numbers, but you can still tell a story. You can still tell a story without specifics. So learn how to tell that story is a critical skill for a career, for developers who want to go next level.
Yeah, another question about that, because I feel this is very important to make your profile stand out. So, for example, let's suppose you made a proposal to use a new technology, a new cloud technology, and you saved a lot of money by adopting this new technology, but you don't have the exact numbers. Like ideally, you would put there, oh, I reduced the costs of infrastructure by 20% or whatever. How do you calculate this percentage, or this tangible measurements
That's where,
to
yeah,
include in your CV? How do you do that? Because you don't have the specific numbers, the precise numbers.
that's fine. I mean, stocks go up and down on a daily basis. Do you really need to know the stock price, or do you need to know how much the stock went up or down? Which one is more important? The stock went up 20%. Is that good or bad? That's good. Does it matter the stock price? No, because if you're invested in that stock, it just went up 20%. Whatever amount of money you have on that stock, it just went up 20%. So when you tell the story to a new employer, you may not have the financials. Let's say, for this specific discussion, let's assume it's a private company, not publicly traded. There's no public information about the company. No one can know unless you are employed by that company about that information, right? And by default, you're not allowed to share the information publicly. You cannot say what was the revenue of the company. You're not allowed to say how many users the company has. You're not allowed to say what was the cost of infrastructure. Our company spends 15 million in cloud bills per year. That's okay. What was the business outcome? Well, the business outcome was my optimization helped the company reduce in 15% the cost of cloud bills. That's still valid. If I think now from the perspective of the employer, your new employer has a cloud infrastructure number in their head. Wow, my cloud bills with this vendor here is, $10 million a year. If I hire this guy, he can probably help me save $150,000 a year in costs, right? Because that's the percentage that the candidate's at in the interview. So sometimes if you don't have the specific numbers, that's okay. What was the benefit? Well, the benefit was 15% in reduction in cloud bills. The benefit was our team was able to improve time spent in testing by 18% more. Well, how big is the team? Well, I cannot tell you how big is the team. Maybe it's one developer, maybe it's 15 developers, maybe it's 50 developers. I cannot tell you that number. But I can tell you, I was able to help our team improve our quality assurance phase of our project, reduce that time by 15%. So now our team has more time to do more stuff. So release time gets faster. Release cycles get to be increased. Customer experience gets better, right? So it's all about telling the story. It's all about, sharing what was the outcome, sharing what was the benefit to the company and to its customers. If you're able to tell that story, even with the slightly minimal amount of information, that is still getting you ahead of many other candidates. Because everybody can know Python these days. But not everybody can put together all their knowledge and produce a business benefit and translate that into a business benefit and being able to recognize and highlight that business benefit. So that is a differentiator.
Yeah, there is a quote that I like very much, which is that knowledge is not power. Knowledge is actually potential power, because knowledge only becomes power when you use it to create something useful. Because only knowing several programming languages, several databases, several microservices, architectures, doesn't mean anything unless you can do something useful with this knowledge. And that's true with anything else, with any other knowledge. If you only have this knowledge and you never use it, it's like not having it. It's kind of useless.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a very important lesson to keep in mind, because a lot of people think that, I'm going to do, and it's okay. I have nothing against that, but there are people who, study their whole lives. And then you ask, what you're doing with this knowledge? Oh, not much. Actually, never used it. So what's the point, right? So sometimes we have to ask ourselves, why we are learning so much. If you're not applying it, it's useless. So we should always make the effort. Okay, I'm learning this because I want this outcome. I want to create this value. Otherwise, learning for learning,
Yeah.
I don't see any value.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'd say there are four stages. And for stage in this topic we are talking about, I cannot define the topic we're talking about, but I think there is information, right? There is information, whether it's on the internet, books, videos, whatever. Information is available to everyone. I would say everyone today has access to pretty much the same amount of information that everybody else, right? If you have at least minimal financial capacity, right? And when I say minimal financial capacity, is like I have $20 per month to spend on ChatGPT, or I have $20 per month to spend on some subscription to an online library. I mean, or access to the internet is not free. We have to pay for an internet provider. But so minimal financial capacity, everybody has pretty much access to the same amount of information as everybody else. Second thing is knowledge, as you said. From information, you can turn that into knowledge. So information is here. Knowledge is in your brain, right? Once you read that information, that becomes knowledge in your brain, in your mindset. But then there is wisdom, where you have the knowledge, but wisdom is, I like to think of wisdom as when you put knowledge together, right? You can have the knowledge that, I like this joke. Knowledge is knowing that tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is knowing that you don't put tomato in a fruit salad, right? Nobody eats tomatoes in a fruit salad with apples and bananas and oranges. It's just not part of that. So wisdom is the connection of that knowledge, and when to apply what. But then there is action or outcome. When that wisdom turns into something else, turns into a value to someone else, even if it's for yourself, that's okay. But it's when the wisdom creates value. And that wisdom creates value when you put into practice, when you put into action. So you can know things, but if you don't do anything with that, you're not creating value. If you're not creating value, no one will even know that you have that knowledge, that you have that wisdom. How could anyone know that you know something unless you tell them you know something? How can anyone know you are capable of producing value if you don't tell them an example of when and how and why you produce value, right? So I think that those four things are extremely important: information, knowledge, wisdom, and value.
Yeah, value and action. Yeah, you need to take action with this knowledge. Once you acquire the knowledge, then you acquire the wisdom, then the action, then you produce the outcome.
And the other thing to think about wisdom is wisdom creates better value. But to create better wisdom, you have to produce value. You have to produce outcome. You have to have action. It's information produces more knowledge. More knowledge produces wisdom. More wisdom produces value. But it's the attempt of producing value that improves wisdom itself. Kind of goes back, right? Because it's the more you try, the more you learn what works and what doesn't, which gives you more experience, which gives you more wisdom.
Exactly. It's the whole process, like knowledge, wisdom, action, and then you get the feedback, right? You get the feedback from your mistakes, from what you got it right, and then you refine, you go again, knowledge, wisdom, action, feedback, and then you are in this cycle, and then you are growing.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. You also talked about something very important and something that I think the vast majority of developers neglect. And I know this is so important. I remember I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and he told me something about storytelling. Then I said, what? What is storytelling? I never heard this word before. And I had zero knowledge about that. And I learned that storytelling is actually very important because you connect with people by telling stories, right?
Yeah.
So what would be your advice for developers to become better at storytelling?
Tell more stories.
But is there structure? Is there something that you would say, okay, follow this structure, do that, like something specific that will make the story more interesting?
I don't know the specifics of a story structure, but there are some elements, right? You have a protagonist, you have a place, you have a time, you have a problem, and you have a journey. You have the hero journey. It's a common element in storytelling, or the protagonist journey, right? Who is, and also who is the observer? Who is observing the story? And how the story is being told? Is it on a first person, third person? Are we telling our story? Are we telling someone else's story? I think there are some structure that can be put in place. And once you learn the basic elements of the story, of any story, you should be able to quickly turn any event, something that happened, into a story. And the story has progression, story has suspense, story has hooks, something happened, but then something else happened, but then this happened, but then, and always, okay, what next? That kind of gets people interested in continue to listen to the story, because the story's not over. Okay, there was this problem, and then this person went into this journey and then faced these challenges, but they haven't solved yet the main problem. The ring has not gone to the Vulcan yet. What was like the Lord of the Rings name of the mountain? Like, Frodo has not thrown the ring yet. That was the main goal. From like first 30 minutes of the movie, we know what is the goal of the story. But then you have 3 whole movies, telling the story. So building suspense and building, progression, those are basic elements of a story. And the best way to get better at storytelling is to tell more stories. Even from the small one. I have my kids are going to school, and when they come back from school, it's sometimes hard to get them to tell what they did at school. How was your day? Fine. What did you do? Nothing. Yes or no questions, they don't work. One thing that I do like to ask them was, what made you laugh today in class? The reason that question is interesting is because it's not a yes or no question. I could have asked, did you laugh today at school? Yeah, I did. Or no, I didn't. And then you ask why, but why you didn't laugh? Oh, nothing. Or why did you laugh? Oh, nothing. Like, they don't want to tell the story. They don't want to discuss. But if I ask an open-minded question, like, what made you laugh today at school? It will make them think of what happened at school. And then they will feel like, okay, yeah, this guy fell from the chair and that was funny, but he was okay. He didn't hurt himself, but he was okay. Or, no, nothing made me laugh today at school. Oh, really? So why were you sad? Oh, I wasn't sad. I just didn't laugh. Well, anything going on with you? No, I'm fine now. Like, just keep engaging, more curiosity, more questioning, but in a way that doesn't drive to a yes or no question. And I think storytelling is not exactly what I'm talking about right now, but it's about creating an expectation that something will happen next. So I guess I just told you a story that, like, what will happen? Okay, why was he laughing? What was not? Like, created a little bit of suspense. So it is about that. It's about generating curiosity in the listener. If you're able to generate curiosity in your listener, whoever is listening to you, you're telling a story. That's it. Right? So tell more stories. Create more scenarios that will get to your point. Watch other people telling stories. I mean, lots of videos about storytelling online with lots of examples. And write down. There's another technique that is interesting, which is journaling. Journaling is the technique of writing down your day. Get a journal book, write down, pen and paper. How was your day? This morning has been horrible because I had to do this meeting. It took me 2 hours. During the meeting, I was distracted by this butterfly at my window that was consuming my attention. And then somebody asked me, how is the progress of the project? I couldn't answer clearly because I was distracted by the butterfly. Well, sounds like you just have a story now. You have a story about how you get distracted by butterflies. That's an interesting story. How useful that story will be in your life, I don't know. I'm not here to tell you whether a story will be interesting in the future or not, but I'm telling you there are ways to get better at storytelling.
That's a very good one, because by journaling every day, imagine how good you would become at storytelling if you do that every single day. And if you journal about your feelings, about how was your day, that's amazing. That's a very good technique, actually. And also, doing journaling is very useful to process bad feelings. So if you're feeling frustrated, or if you're feeling demotivated, or whatever you're going through in your life, it's a very good technique to process those bad feelings, and also to practice your storytelling skills.
Absolutely.
Amazing. So how is your day-to-day job as a principal product manager at Microsoft focused on Java?
Today, I'm the product manager for the Microsoft OpenJDK, Microsoft Build OpenJDK. I work on other few projects as well. We have a project for a migration tool that we do in collaboration with Red Hat. That one is really cool. Like I mentioned earlier, in the past, I was a PM for helping customers in Latin America move from older versions of Java to new versions. Today, we are actually doing that with a tool now. And there are other tools in the market. You have lots of these projects inside of your company that are running Java 6, 7, 8, and you really want to use Java 11 and 17 and 21 and other versions coming next, but you're stuck in these old versions. Even at Microsoft, we also have lots of projects internally that are written in Java that face the same challenge. We want to modernize our code base, but it's a little bit daunting moving to a newer version of Java. We think that it's going to be hard, it's going to break things, everything is running fine, don't touch it, right? If it's in production, it's working, don't touch it. That's the default for everyone in IT. But there are costs, right? There are hidden costs of running older versions of software, whether it's security, whether it's performance, whether it's developer productivity. There are hidden costs, and that's why you want to modernize. So we have a tool that does that helps customers do that, and also internal teams at Microsoft. Then there is also the marketing aspect of things, helping developers understand where Java can be used on Azure, how it can be used on Azure, how could they bring their Java workloads to Azure. And there's a lot of conversations with developers, a lot of conversation with customers. Customers sometimes they don't know. You don't know what you don't know. So somebody has to tell you what you don't know, right? And then that's part of the job. So it's an interesting job. You got to do product development, but I also I'm still doing the more outbound activities as well, perhaps less than before at Oracle, but still some to some degree. It's a good role. It's an interesting job. Again, like Java at Microsoft is an interesting effort for a company that is heavily invested in .NET and Visual Studio and C++, which is another language that is heavily used. And then you have Python and JavaScript all the time, especially now with AI, LLMs, data science. Where does Java fit in? It's really hard. But there are customers using Microsoft technologies out there in Microsoft services. So we help those customers for sure. And it's all about getting developers to do more with Microsoft technologies, whether it's by using AI, whether it's by using Visual Studio Code, whether it's by deploying to Azure services with ease. We try to work hard on making developer experience great for every developer, not just .NET developer, but every developer, including Java developers. That's basically the job.
Awesome. So, how do you help companies to modernize their Java versions?
We have
Because this is so difficult. The companies, like you said, they are against doing that, but the costs can be really high, as you
correct.
said. For example, Equifax, they neglected upgrading their struts framework. And because of the breach, they had to pay $425 million because of the security breach. So
Right.
upgrading the Java version is critical. And if the companies are still using Java 8, they take serious risks of having a security breach and having to pay a couple of $1 million or even billions. Who knows?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have two approaches today. One is using a tool called Azure Migrate Code Assessment, application and code assessment. It's a static analysis tool. We'll look at your code or binary and kind of point out any potential issue that will prevent you running that code in a newer version of Java. Whether you're using a deprecated API or an API that changed behavior from a new version of Java, that kind of helps you assess the state of the application, how legacy this application is at the end of the day. That helps customers identify what we call low-hanging fruit. Let's say you assess hundreds of applications, and on a scale of 1 to 10, how difficult this application is to modernize to a new version of Java. So you gotta help prioritize the list of your application, of your list of the applications. The second tool that we have is a tool that is actually an extension of Visual Studio Code that integrates with GitHub Copilot. Behind the scenes, we use the assessment tool, and we also use Open Rewrite, so that we have the assessment happening behind the scenes, but we also use technology, AI, and recipes that will actually change the code for you in a way that will achieve your goal of moving to a newer version of Java. So those two tools combined give customers the opportunity to modernize with ease from Java 8 to Java 11 to 17, 17 to 21, and so forth. I would say that for most projects, the real challenge is not moving from Java 8 to 11 or 11 to 17. It is often moving the libraries, the dependencies used by the application. Because sometimes, this library here is outdated. And to run this thing with Java 11, you have to move to this version. But then moving to that version triggers a lot of, like this waterfall of dependency upgrades that also have to happen. That becomes the actual problem. Now I have to upgrade 15 other dependencies just because of this dependency here. Now I have to build, compile, and test this application because it didn't change just the version of Java. I actually changed all the dependencies. So my application is no longer just running on top of a new Java runtime. It's running with the new versions of all the libraries required by this application. So it's effectively a new application. It's effectively not just a modern Java modernized version of the application. It's an entire replatform of the application. Like I completely changed everything. It's new Hibernate, new Spring, new JSON library, new transaction library, new database driver, new Kafka connector. All these things have changed. So I have to test everything. And that becomes, quite stressful for any customer to look at that. Oh my God, I have to test this application. So that's no wonder migration efforts take long. They require human actual labor to go through all the code changes. And even if the code change is automated by AI, you still have to review them. The code still has to compile and you still have to test. And let's just not discuss how often teams actually build great tests into their code base, because we know they don't. But that's another challenge. Maybe AI can help with that. Maybe AI can help with, let's build tests first. And then we'll start the modernization effort of the code, right? And there are some efforts, some studies in that space using AI to generate task coverage, which is a great way to expedite modernization efforts. And it's a requirement, honestly. For me to verify that my code still works, I need to test. And the best way to test is to write tests. Right.
Yeah. So I read also that you are also engaged with AI at Microsoft. So what are your responsibilities with AI in Microsoft right now?
Last year, we built this library called Semantic Kernel for Java. I mean, there are many ways to integrate Java application with AI. You can use REST APIs of any AI service out there. Or you can go to the next level and use an SDK, right? So you can use a Java library that abstracts the REST APIs and does all the plumbing for you. That's great. Or you can go the extra mile and actually use a library that abstracts the SDK for you and brings another abstraction layer that focus on the concepts of what an intelligent app requires. So an intelligent app requires chat completion, requires memory, requires embeddings, requires vector search, which is kind of part of embeddings. It requires image generation. It requires parameterization of the AI model. It requires agents. It requires working with multiple models at the same time. All of that sounds like an orchestration problem. And that's where you have these abstraction frameworks on top of SDKs that create all these concepts that I just described as elements, as components that you can integrate with and build on in your application. And last year we shipped the semantic kernel for Java. Semantic kernel itself is an approach from Microsoft for building intelligent apps. So we have semantic kernel for .NET, we have semantic kernel for Python, and we have semantic kernel for TypeScript, and we have semantic kernel for Java. Each of these libraries will help developers build intelligent apps, and they all follow similar concepts or design principles. A good analogy, a good comparison for semantic kernel for Java is LangChain for J. It's another library that developers can also use that provides this abstraction layer of all these concepts. And I think it's extremely important for developers today to understand what is an intelligent app, how can they build an intelligent app, why should they build an intelligent app, going back to the business problem and the business outcome, the business value, and then the techniques for building intelligent apps. And I think the approach is becoming the most interesting one, because what we have learned so far is that I don't think we'll ever have a model, an LLM model, that will be the silver bullet model. I think we'll always have this model is great for this model is great for that, this model is great for that. And even within this aspect of different models for different use cases, you have different scenarios that may need a combination of these models. That element is what your agentic element in your flow is. You have an agentic component that may use one model or multiple models or different flows for doing one particular task. And that particular task triggers subtasks. And those subtasks may trigger different models. And then that task is just maybe an input for another task. Right? So the output of this task is an input for another task. And that's where you have the agentic flow of your intelligent app. So semantic kernel for Java today is not providing an agentic flow yet. It's something that we have in mind. But I think that is the next wave of intelligent app development, building agentic flows in intelligent apps. For now, chat completion, image generation, audio, speech, text-to-speech, search, embedding search, all of that is already complex enough for many developers. And that's why I think libraries like semantic kernel for Java, LangChain for J, and Spring AI are quite helpful to minimize the cognitive load of understanding how to apply AI into application development. I mean, application development with AI has two elements. One is I'm going to use AI to develop my application, which is using Copilot inside Visual Studio Code or DevBox Genie and GitHub Copilot as well in IntelliJ. Or just using ChatGPT. Just go to ChatGPT and you ask questions and ask for example, and voila, you have a software development flow that uses them as an assistant. But then the next level is, how do I put AI into my application? How do I make AI part of my application so that the users of my application benefit from it? I think that's the key question that many developers are asking, right? Because using AI to develop, that's kind of easy. How do I put AI into my application is the key question. And there's lots of other questions that evolve that question. How about data privacy? How about not mixing prompts from different users? How do I separate the data using RAG, for example, so that this user asking about this question doesn't get a piece of information from this other user asking this other question? How do I separate the material in my database, the content, so that this user from this tenant does not see information from this tenant? All of that requires a lot of reimagination of how we develop systems. And it's just more complexity at the end of the day. Now I remember when I built my first application, I only had to deal with one thing. It was the relational database. But now we have systems that have relational database, non-structured database, NoSQL database. They have event streaming. They have big data. They have public REST APIs that they have to integrate with. They have authentication mechanisms that they have to deal with. Then they have the role of the user, which roles can do what. Then you have cryptography. You have non-textual content like image and audio and video involved. It's just a lot. It's just a lot more. And the reality is, maybe AI is here for a good reason, because systems have becoming more complex even before AI appeared in the way that it is today. And it has been challenging to build and work on systems even before ChatGPT became a thing. So now with ChatGPT, maybe, hopefully, it actually simplifies working in complex systems. They're becoming more complex, but with AI, we can, rebalance that. Yeah, they're more complex, but we can cope with that because we have an assistant now that can help us understand all these challenges. That's how I see it personally, and I believe other folks kind of agree with that here at Microsoft and outside. So for any developer out there, just embrace it, learn how to use it. It's a tool, but it's also an element that can be added to your application, to your systems, to augment the experience and the value to the users.
Do you think AI will take our jobs soon?
No.
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 What about maybe it was a marketing quote, but Mark Zuckerberg affirmed that AI will replace mid-level developers.
Yeah. And then the next day, he set up a war room of engineers to compete with DeepSeek from China. Right? So will AI take our jobs? Well, AI just lost its job to another AI. That's what happened.
Very good.
So I see the progression here being AI models will become better and cheaper, which means more people will have access to AI. More people will have access to LLMs, which means more people will be able to achieve more, to do more, right? Within the same time that they have in the day. I'll give you, I was doing, here at Microsoft, we have a database that collects telemetry of different services. And I wanted to figure out which versions of Java are being used across Microsoft. And this database is a Custo database. So if you search for Custo database, it's a technology here at Microsoft, and it has its own query language, the Custo query language, KQL. I've never written a Custo query before in my life, but I was able to write a pretty complex one with LLM, with Copilot.
Yeah.
a pretty complex one. And then I was like, man, it would be nice if I could visualize this data on some nice dashboards. And yeah, I could probably write Python script to generate some charts for me. You know, I get the data, throw on a CSV file or Excel spreadsheet, and then I ask ChatGPT and Copilot to write me a Python script that gets the data, summarize and generate charts. And then I can go get that chart, that PNG file, put in a Word document, have this nice report that I can send to people. But then I'll probably have to maintain that on a regular basis. I don't want that. So I thought, is there a better way to create a report that visualizes these data? And then I remembered that Microsoft has a product called Power BI, which is business intelligence. I've never done anything with this product in my life. What can I use this thing for visualize this data? So I went to ChatGPT. Yeah, I have this custom query that produces this type of data. How can I visualize this thing with Power BI? And the answer was a step-by-step. Go to Power BI, create a connection, write the query in this field, get the data model will be extracted from that query. Now go to this page, click on this button, add a chart, select chart type X, add these columns to these fields, click OK, and voila, I have this chart. And the beauty of that chart is that it's actually real time. Anytime I open the dashboard, it runs the query again and it gets fresh data. Now, questionable because it's quite expensive to run that data. Maybe I should cache it instead of just doing it real time. But I was able to do that in a matter of a few days. And it's still doing other work, right? Maybe I spent like total 12 hours with this project. So I learned, I learned something. All the elements in my query, I cannot say I learned them all, but I can say that today I can write a basic query. That query is quite complex because I was stitching together some components and elements and expressions and functions. So if you ask me to replicate that query without using AI, I probably couldn't. But I've learned a little bit of it, and I could probably do a basic query today. And I learned a little bit of Power BI. I can go to Power BI today and do a dashboard using Excel at the very least, or connect into a basic query in Kusto. That is the power of LLM, in my opinion. That's the power of AI, in my opinion. We can learn faster. We can experiment faster. We can deliver value faster. The real question is, do we want to do that? So I think the question that you asked before, are we going to lose our jobs to AI? People may lose their jobs to AI, not because AI took their jobs, but because someone else is leveraging AI enough that makes this person not required or this role not required. So who do you want to be? The person that is not leveraging AI to do more faster, or the person who is doing it? Because there will be some trade-offs in this situation. So if everybody can do more, think of it as you have 10 employees, your company has 10 employees. If everybody's doing more with AI, the company is producing more value faster. Why would the owner fire half of the team if the whole team is using AI to the point that the whole team is delivering more value faster? The company just grows faster, right? So yeah, I would say we won't lose our jobs if we leverage AI, if we use AI. That's the key answer. So I just encourage everyone to try it and, get used to it, embrace it.
Yeah, definitely. Using AI is a superpower nowadays. And with technology, like back in the days, we didn't have all of this technology power. Like even to have a computer at home was expensive, was difficult. But quite recently, the phone era started. And with phones, we already became some kind of cyborgs, right? Because we have very quick access to information. But now with AI, we became a lot more powerful cyborgs because we have the power of AI, basically like the knowledge of, I don't know how many books, how much teras of information. It's insane. We have access to so much information with LLMs
Right.
that we became a lot more powerful cyborgs. And there's going to be the other era, right? The era that we might even download like knowledge in our brains, like Matrix. It's crazy, but this will happen soon enough.
People can only become a cyborg if they want to become a cyborg, but still it's under your control. And there are some people that I know that don't want to. My mom doesn't care about AI. My mom is not using ChatGPT to ask questions. You know how my mom figures out stuff? She texts me. And if my mom has some question, oh, I don't know how to fill my taxes this year. My mom will not go into ChatGPT to figure it out by herself. She'll ask me. And what do you think I'm going to do? I live in Canada now. Last time I filled taxes for the Brazilian government was in 2014, 2015. I don't know more. But like 10 years, it's been a decade since last time I did taxes in Brazil. Laws have changed. Process has changed. I don't know anymore. So she asked me, hey, should I do taxes? Well, Bob, I don't know. Now, I can go the path of me asking ChatGPT for that answer and then sending her a copy or a summary of the answer to her, or even tell ChatGPT, hey, ChatGPT, my mom wants to know about her taxes. Give me an answer that is mother. It's like me replying to her on WhatsApp. Like I even instruct ChatGPT to give me an answer that it is as if I was the one replying to her, probably with some typos on purpose or some emojis. And then I'm just copy and paste, right? Yeah, mom, sure. So in practice, I became an API for ChatGPT, right? Or a proxy to ChatGPT, a gateway. But in reality, what I would do is tell my mom, I found this tax advisor in your city. Contact them because they will know how to help you with your taxes. Now, whether the tax advisor knows the new laws, they should, or whether they're going to use ChatGPT to do their job, it's up to them, right? But they're a tax advisor. They have the expertise. But if they can use ChatGPT to do more, if they can use Copilot to do more faster, why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't a tax advisor use ChatGPT, input parameters from their customers, and then figure out, assuming their database has the updated tax code, right? Assuming the LLM has the latest version of the tax code, why wouldn't they use LLM to produce a tax strategy for my mom in a matter of seconds instead of getting someone else to spend an hour or 2 hours figuring out her case? Sure, you're going to still probably need some spreadsheet to make sure that the numbers add up, because no one should trust LLMs to do math for you, unless it's an agentic application that will use actual Python code to do the math for you. Then it's fine, which is what the latest versions of ChatGPT and Copilot are doing these days. But yeah, essentially, this tax advisor is doing more. Now he is capable probably of getting more customers like my mom, is more capable now of getting, I don't know, twice as many customers with the same amount of time that they have in their hand, right? So we as developers are like this tax advisor. We are capable of doing more if we use the LLMs in a smart way. And we are capable of giving our end users access to these LLMs so they can do also more faster, right? So it's completely in our hands how to do that.
Yeah. And that's very interesting to be an API. Yeah, I think I am the same. Okay, Bruno. So what was your journey to become a Java champion?
Well, I don't think there was a journey. I think it kind of just happened. It's Java Champion is a group of people that are very well established in their career, in their space. I think when I think the group was formed back at Sun Microsystems and a long time ago, and it was a way to recognize contributions from non-employees towards the Java ecosystem. Especially when Java became open source, that was when I feel like the Java Champions program even grew more and faster. But I remember when I was a developer before I joined Oracle in 2012, I remember I heard about Java Champions. I heard about this group of things that were well established, well recognized, well respected in their space in promoting the technology, promoting the ecosystem, engaging with the community and developers around the world. Honestly, I never felt like, oh, my goal in life is to become a Java champion. I never had that. Never thought about it for a second. And the way the program works is people get nominated, sometimes without them even knowing they get nominated, right? They're just like, hey, you got nominated to become a Java champion. Are you okay with that? And you're sure. All right, so the group is voting, and you should hear soon about the results. That's kind of how it happens for the most part. And yeah, again, I never thought about becoming one. And in a sense, it's just a reflection of the work that you do. So for me, it was like I was promoting the technology, I was promoting the ecosystem and the community. I was engaging at conferences, I was engaging at open source and product development, helping people see what could be done with technology. And eventually, especially after I left Oracle, that's when I heard about this nomination sometime around 2018, 2019. Because you cannot be part of the program, cannot be nominated at Java Champion if you are an Oracle employee or back then a Sun Microsystems employee. Although honestly, I think in retrospective, I feel like the best Java champions in the world are the Oracle employees themselves. I think they are the true Java champions in the sense of championing for the technology because they are out there on a daily basis, promoting technology, developing the technology. Of course, in collaboration with the open source effort behind OpenJDK, which is the open source code of Java in collaboration with many other companies, including Microsoft. So, but those employees never get to get the title of a Java champion, and I feel like that is an oversight. Some might argue, well, it's our job to promote Java, right? Because you work for Oracle, it's your job to do so. Yes, true. But you can also be an employee and never talk about the stuff that your company does in outside work. I mean, you and I, we can be 9 to 5 employees at any company and actually never use the products that the company builds, right? I mean, you can work for JetBrains, the company behind IntelliJ. You might as well use Eclipse at home or Visual Studio Code, right? I can work for BMW, but my car is Volkswagen, right? I can work for Audi and my car can be a BMW. So yeah, you can be an employee at a company and not necessarily promote the technology that you work with, right? So when I see the Oracle employees out there building technology and promoting the technology, I mean that's really good, and that's actually a career advice in the general sense, right? You work in a company, how are you making yourself visible outside the company on a regular basis? How you engage with the technology that you yourself work on a regular basis. So the trajectory for becoming a Java champion was not a planned trajectory. It was nothing at all. It just kind of happened. I got nominated, and it's a great opportunity to be part of a group of folks that get to discuss challenges, got to ask questions about technical problems or ask for ideas and suggestions, sometimes outside the space of the common use, debate ways to promote technology or debate ways to promote each other, right, in the ecosystem. I think it's a very supportive group, and I really enjoy being part of that.
Yeah, there's a story that probably you don't know, but you helped me a lot to become a Java champion.
Okay.
So, like back in the days when I was sharing knowledge about Java code challenges, I was being very consistent on that. I started gaining visibility in the Java community, and I was attending the Java user group meetings, and I was meeting many speakers. I was talking to them, understanding more about the Java Champion program because I always admired so much every Java Champion. And I was having a conversation with Nico. He gave a talk here at DubJug, and I mentioned that I was sharing knowledge about Java code challenges, and then he said, hey, there is a very cool platform in Oracle called Oracle Dev Gym, and I know a guy from there, Bruno Borges, who
Yeah.
could possibly help you to share your knowledge there,
I
to
remember
create
that.
Java challenges there. And then you took the action, and then it happened. You helped me to talk with the Oracle Dev Gym organizer, and that helped me gain visibility between the Java champions.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was awesome. Thank you so much for that, because it really helped me. And yeah, that's the power of networking. Like when you are consistently sharing your knowledge and you're doing good for the community, like there is no reason that other people will help you, right? So that's the power of the community and networking.
Absolutely.
So, people will know that you are doing the work, you're being consistent, like people will help you. So, and like in Java, for me, the most powerful thing in Java is the community. Like no other programming language is even close to the power of community in Java.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. I think and no, thanks for bringing this up. Yeah, it was. I remember now. It was a long time ago. Yeah, but I remember seeing your challenges on social media, and I always felt like, man, this guy does a good job at teaching Java. He should have more visibility. I'm glad it resulted in something even greater for you, right? It's really exciting to see that. It is kind of what happened with me back then. Like I was just like doing conference talks, and then somebody from Oracle saw the, hey, you should work for Oracle here in Latin America, and that's how I got the job offer, the job referral. It's a community that supports itself a lot. Once you get involved with certain folks in the Java community, there is an always increasing set of opportunities that will show up in front of us. We just need to take them, right? And you took that opportunity, and it's very great to see where you are today. So thanks for you for taking that leap of faith and that step forward. I think in general, the networking is a great aspect. I think there's no better way to grow career wise than other than networking. Like I think networking is the pillar of career growth. Um, people can job hop on a regular basis. They can go from employer to employer. I'm gonna work for this company for 2 years, and the next company for 3 years, and then the next company for 4 years, and then the next company for 2 years, and always like increasing the salary. But eventually, you can get yourself into a situation where, God, I'm tired of moving jobs every now and then, and and I believe I'm gonna I'm gonna lose my job in the next layoff. And then you're kind of stuck in a position where you didn't build a network of people around yourself and in your career space. And if something bad happens, you're on your own. You have no one to talk to, you have no one to ask for referrals, you have no one to promote you out there in the job market. So I think networking is critical to everyone, whether it's for becoming Java champion, whether it's for getting opportunity to speak at conferences, whether it's to get a better job, whether it's to get a better life outside work. Networking is critical, and the community of Java champions kind of allow that, bring that. But the Java community in general, and I believe other language ecosystems and other technology ecosystems also have, to some degree, communities around those common interests that anyone can get involved. But it does take an effort. It does take time to invest. It's like any friendship. Most friendships will only sustain for as long as you keep feeding that friendship. Only a handful of friendships will last time. And those are considered like the true friendships, right? The ones that you don't talk to this person for 5-10 years, but when you do, still true good friends, right? That support each other. But the rest of the friendships are the ones that you have to keep feeding. And I think what builds that network of people around you is that constant, participation in conversation around these common areas of interest. And yeah, the Java community does allow that.
Yeah, and when you are between like the best developers, when you go to conferences, you basically discover what you don't know, right?
Yeah.
So, and like some other developer might tell you, oh, I'm working with this super cool technology, I can do this amazing thing, and then sometimes you don't know. So it's very useful to talk to others, to engage, and create real connections. So I think that's a very good lesson, and also to be a giver.
Yeah, makes sense.
So I know it depends from company to company, but what is a senior developer for you?
I think seniority level of programmers, yeah, they will dramatically vary from company to company. One very basic aspect of a senior developer that I expect to have that a junior developer may not have, and it's okay for a junior developer to not have, is proactiveness. Being proactive towards challenges, problems, what to build next, what to do next. I remember being a junior developer and I would get stuck into something and I would feel like I was not in a position to ask for help. And I would just go and read, documentation and try to debug. And I would spend hours, days on trying to solve the problem. Ironically, a senior developer is more likely to go figure out on their own, but not hesitate to ask questions as soon as they feel like there's no way I can get past this point. Where a junior developer will just try to keep hitting the head in the wall, thinking that the wall will crumble or open the hole in the wall. It just doesn't happen. But a senior developer will try. But as soon as they're like, this is too painful, they're just going to look around and ask for help. They will be proactive about, stating the problem, setting the right context, sharing what they have already tried, and then ask for help to the point where the help will be meaningful. The help will come in and actually help them address the problem. Sometimes proactiveness can also be in the form of, hey, I found this problem, and instead of asking for someone else whether that problem needs to be fixed or not, they will just do the work. Hey, I found this issue here. Here's my proposal on how to fix it. By the way, here's the fix. And by the way, this is, I tried the fix, and this is like the benefit of this fix. So I think proactiveness is like one major element that I expect senior engineers to have than junior engineers. Also figuring out what to do next. Like, that's an important thing. Like, okay, I'm done with my job. I delivered my task. I look at my issue tracking system. There are no more issues assigned to my name. And junior developers is like, okay, I'm done, and then not talk about anything else and just expect that their manager, their lead will come and bring more work. A senior developer, I expect, will actually go look at the issue tracking and look for other bugs and other issues that are in the backlog, and just go figure out and solve those problems, right? And ask, of course, ask if those problems are meant to be fixed at this time frame, or if there is any what's going on with those issues. That's in fact, that's an interesting aspect of a senior developer. It's not just about being proactive, but it's about communication. Yes, you have to be proactive, in my opinion, but you have to communicate. Communicate what you are going to do next if that thing is not already planned. Communicate what you're going to do, when you're going to do, how you're going to do, what's the plan. Communication is important. Junior developers, they are told, go do this thing. They work on this thing, then they hit yes, complete. And then you have to go back and tell them, okay, now work on this thing. Senior developers, I expect proactiveness. And as a consequence of that, they have to communicate very often and with good quality communication.
How do senior developers get better with communication?
I think, well, first of all, is by communicating more often. But I mean, you don't know if you're communicating well unless you ask if you're communicating well. So I think communicating often is first step, but then asking, literally just ask people who you are communicating with, is my communication clear enough? Am I making myself clear when I bring an issue, when I propose a solution? What else can I do to improve my communication? I think it's just like being open to feedback, being open to ask for feedback, receive the feedback, parse it, and execute on it. I think that is how you get better at communication.
Very good. Yeah, asking for feedback is something that it's a bit challenging for developers because it hurts the ego. It might hurt the ego, but it's necessary. You need to kind of crush your ego to grow.
Yeah, you have to. There's no other way to improve unless you know what to improve. I mean,
Exactly.
Let's think of ourselves as software. If we are software, how can we know what's improving the software if we don't know where the problem is, right? So you have to ask people, okay, what's the problem here? Why do you feel like my communication sucks? It's the first step.
Yeah. So, in your opinion, what are the most important technical skills for senior developers?
Technical skills for senior developers.
Yeah, for senior Java developers specifically.
It really depends on their problem space, where they are in the problem space. Are they building web applications? Are they building client applications? Are they building frameworks and libraries? Are they building REST APIs? I think most of the technical skills for Java developers are around there is the generic technical skills, which is understanding the language, understanding the APIs, understanding the runtime, the JVM. But for the majority of developers, I think the number one technical skill that I expect them to have is how to read documentation. It's like, just, do you even know how to read documentation? Because I see developers going on Google and just searching for the answer, or go to Stack Overflow, or now they go to ChatGPT, which is a fair progression, right? You start searching on the internet and you find certain articles and you find something, and then it's not exactly what you thought, doesn't actually help you fix the problem. So you go to the next level, go to Stack Overflow, and you find this question, also the same question that you have, with an answer, but you try the answer, it doesn't help. So you go to the next level and you go to ChatGPT and you ask the question, and the answer it provides is also not helping you fix the problem. And I always feel like, hey, have you thought about maybe reading the documentation and getting go one step back. What is the problem here? Oh, it's concurrency. My threads are running into a race condition. Well, do you even know what a race condition is? Do you even know why you have this thread lock, concurrency lock in your application? Go back one step and go find that understanding and get that understanding, and then go back to the problem. Learn the documentation from the documentation of Java or whatever library you're working with, how concurrent programming is done in that particular library, framework, Java version, whatever you're working with. Learn those basics. So maybe your problem is just how to understand fundamentally the problem itself. And I think if developers know how to read documentation, when to read documentation, how to understand documentation, I think it's a very good technical skill to have. And then, then they of course can go back to Stack Overflow. Maybe they frame their question in a better way that others will identify. Oh yeah, that problem I had. This is how I solved it. Because the important thing is, once you read the documentation in a particular way and you can parse it, understand it, and you understand your problem in a better way, you are more capable of explaining the problem to someone else so they can help you. Even when that someone else is ChatGPT. Prompt engineering is, some may say it's not a skill. Well, I think it is kind of a skill. It is a skill as much as knowing how to search on Google. You can go on Google and search for A, B, and C, but if A and B and C are not related whatsoever, how are you going to find anything? You have to, open one tab and search for A, open another tab and search for B, open another tab and search for C. If A and B and C are related, then maybe, you can combine those things in a single query on Google. So same thing with ChatGPT. It's like you go there, it's like, yeah, I'm having a problem with my car. Help me fix this problem here. But also, what is the API for doing math calculation for linear algebra, whatever, blah. It's like you're putting two completely different questions in the chat. They're not related at all. So some models may not be able to, answer that in a particular way. I mean, probably latest model of today's whatever will break down. Okay, if you actually have two questions here, for question A, here's an answer, for question B, here's an answer. But still, like, the better you form your question, the more likely you are to get an answer. And the better way to formulate a better question is to understand fundamentally what is the problem that you have. And to understand your problem, it's better to have those fundamentals well implemented in your head, which is done by probably reading more documentation, more conceptual knowledge of things.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like this advice because, when you go through the documentation, you see so much details. Like when you go to the Java documentation, you see everything there. Is it more difficult? It is, definitely. But you learn a lot more. Like it takes a little bit more of work to read the docs, but it is a thing that, will take you to the next level. Like, will make you definitely a better senior software developer.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
that's very good advice. And the other thing I see that it's important for senior software developers, there is a certain point that, like, having courses and reading books is too important. But there will be a certain point where you can simply go to the tool, to the technology, go through the docs, and just try it out. Try it out, read the docs, and learn how the tool works.
Yep.
You don't need to do a course and read a book for every single technology you need to learn. Sometimes going through the docs and just running some tests, you're going to learn because you already know the fundamentals, you already know many things. You went through a lot in your career. So yeah, that's a very good advice. Yeah, that's actually summarizes like the whole question, right? Read documentations. Yeah, that's very good. I like it. And what are the most critical career lessons for Java developers in your opinion?
Well, critical career lesson. I don't have anything in particular. I think one thing that is good about this ecosystem is that the progression, the evolution of the language and the runtime and the APIs is very like steady. There's no big bang. There's no like, oh, here's a new version of Java that breaks everything. But by the way, whatever you learned about Java in the past 5 years, yeah, no longer important. I think it is actually a good thing that there is like a steady progression and all of your previous knowledge is still valid with newer versions. So a critical skill here, I would say, is or a critical aspect of I don't know. I just think developers should be aware that it's not a waste of time learning something, at least in the Java space, because it will be useful. They will be able to layer their knowledge. Like imagine you're a front end developer and you learned everything about jQuery. You know jQuery back and forth. But then, 3, 4, 5 years later, React came in and Angular came in, and all you knew about jQuery is no longer useful because it's like it doesn't really matter. But then I'm talking about a library, not about the language, right? I'm talking about a front-end library. So maybe let's take a more realistic example. Like other JVM languages, they have had attempts at setting new standards. So when Scala came in, was an interesting language. But new versions of Scala, they are to some degree fundamentally different than previous versions of Scala, and some concepts actually don't work, or I believe they don't work because honestly, this is an anecdote that I'm sharing, like you hear say from other folks that are more experts in this field. But the comments that I heard were, yeah, this version of Scala has things that, yeah, whatever, it's not, you don't do that anymore. You do this way. In the Java space, is that true to some degree, to some things? Yeah, probably. But you can still do the older way. You can still do the old way. That's fine. So it just builds on top. And what's critical to this is that it's not a waste. Whatever you learn today, at least in the Java space, can be applied tomorrow to some degree, or at least that understanding can be applied. So the consequence of this is engineers don't have to, feel like they are, oh my God, all these senior engineers, they know so much and I don't know anything and I'm still learning the basics. Well, keep in mind, senior engineers have been working for more years than junior engineers. So they have spent more time building up that knowledge, right? But you're a junior engineer. You only spent like 3, 4 years. Senior engineers are working with 10 plus years. Of course, they have accumulated more knowledge over time. So just keep that in mind. Just, slow down. Don't rush into things. I mean, if you can, go for it, but don't feel like don't let the anxiety hit you, because at the end of the day, you're going through the same journey that senior developers also went through. You're just in a different timeline. The senior developer was born in the 80s. You were born in the 90s. That's a 10-year difference. Easy, right? And we are in 2025. Anybody who was born in 2020 is now 25 years old, right? So I mean, I'm 40. I don't know how old you are, but I'm 40 already, man. Like, it's of course there will be engineers that are like junior engineers on their 20s and feeling like, oh my God, I don't know anything. That's okay. That's how I was at your age, right? That's how I felt at your age. Because I looked at those some microsystem engineers working with Java and developing compilers and VMs and garbage collectors, and I'm like, oh my God, I don't know anything about these things. That's okay. Take your time. In the end, if this is the career that you're choosing for, yeah, things will work out. Just make sure that you leverage as many tools as you can. If you have access to tools, if you have access to AI, if you have access to the internet, if you have access to books and articles and videos, just use them. Oh, but it's too hard to know where to go to for information. That's okay. Go network in the community and ask people, the question, because then they will be able to help you. I like this. I like this. I like to share one comment on what I think about that formal education, because formal education is a hot topic. Like, should people go to the university? Yes or no? In the computer science space, right? Oh, I didn't go to university and I know how to program. Well, good for you. I didn't go to university and I know how to program, but I don't know how to program stuff that many computer scientists actually do. I don't know anything about garbage collectors. I don't know anything about memory management, but I do know how to write a CRUD application. I do know how to write a SQL query, and I know how to write an authentication mechanism, and so on and so forth. So I can build business applications, but I cannot build a JVM from scratch. So why is formal education important? Because it sets some foundations. It sets some fundamental understandings of how things work. And most importantly, I feel like we go to the university or we go to school or whatever, not necessarily to learn, but more like to learn what we can learn. That's where we become aware of the things that we can learn, right? If you go to, like, when I go see your material online, I can like, I didn't know I could do this thing. But Rafael told me, like, I can do this thing this way. And then I will have something to learn more about, right? Because he told me that thing exists, and now I'm aware. Now I can learn in more details. So I think the process of learning, it starts with, becoming aware of what you can learn, and then going into that. So when you don't know where to start, just ask people, or just go to the basic books, and then you start navigating the material and finding the passion for learning.
Awesome. I really like the points. So the first one is to leverage tools. So nowadays we have AI, we have the internet, we have books, we have articles, we have so much information.
Yep.
So leverage those tools for learning, because technology is there to help us, and we need to embrace as much of this power as possible to learn faster and to grow faster, because the world technology advances fast as well, and we need to use everything in our power to learn faster as well. But it doesn't mean that you need to feel anxious, because it's going to take some time, right? It's going to take some time. Have to be patient. Learn as much as possible with senior software developers. Learn as much as possible with more experienced software developers. If you are confused, ask people, go to conferences, because we all know that the internet is crazy. There's so much information there. And learn the foundational knowledge, right? Because like when you're building something, like when you're building a house, you need the foundation, right? Otherwise, how can you build a house? So there is the foundation, so that you have a like solid foundation where like it can't be knocked down. So that's why fundamentals are so important, because the more you know fundamentals, the faster you learn any other concept.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I agree.
Awesome. And what are the most important soft skills for senior software developer? I think we already discussed a little bit about that. We talked about communication and we talked about proactivity. Is there anything else that a senior software developer should do, should be better?
Probably.
A soft skill?
Well, soft skills. There's one soft skill that I think every developer should have, which is knowing how to show your work.
Oh, that's a very important one.
Like you've done something cool. You've solved the problem in a novel way, in a different way. If you don't show that to people, they won't know that you did it a good job. So you have to know how to sell yourself. There are plenty of books about how to sell yourself. And the word sell here is an interesting word in this concept because it is about like you are the seller of your own image. You are the marketeer of your own image. And no one will promote you in the sense of praise you for no reason. Like why do celebrities have a marketing agent? Well, because they are a celebrity already. They are a product of media. That's why they have a marketing agent to promote their image. But we are not celebrities, right? So we have to promote our own work the best way possible. So that's an important soft skills for developers, especially if they want to grow in their career, be available for more job opportunities. They have to promote their job. They have to promote the work that they do in any possible way. That's an important soft skill to have.
Yeah, this one I always struggled with because every time like I did something cool, I was kind of thinking, oh, am I going to sound like that annoying person who is bragging? And so, what is your advice to show your work without being that annoying person who wants to like brag about and say, oh, I'm super cool, I'm the best? Like, how do you show your work without being this annoying person?
It goes back to what we discussed early on. Show the outcome.
Hmm.
What was the business value of your work? And you don't have to sell yourself every time. I'm not saying you should do that on a daily basis. I'm not saying you should do that with everyone in your team, in your company, or on your social media accounts. I mean, you have to know when to do it, right? I remember when I was at Oracle, I started playing with Docker. Docker was just starting, and I remember I felt like fascinated by the idea of spinning up a container with isolated processes and files, etc. Because I was a heavy user of VirtualBox at the time. But VirtualBox is a VM technology. I have to have a whole OS installed to run something sort of like isolated. So I started playing with Docker. And like I said, I was a PM for WebLogic. And the first thing that I tried was, well, what if I could put a WebLogic inside a container? That would be cool. And I remember my manager saying, like, why? I was like, I don't know why yet, but I think this will be the next big thing. So I wrote a Docker file. I wrote some scripts for WebLogic. And I actually had to learn a particular programming language at the time. It was Groovy, because WebLogic had a way to automate some of its tasks, but it had to program in Groovy. So I had to learn a little bit of that. And I wrote a bunch of scripts. And eventually I have this WebLogic automation flow with Docker containers. But then I went to my manager and said, like, hey, I got this thing up and running. Like, that looks cool. Why did you build that? Well, first I built because I thought it would be cool, but now I actually have a case for this thing. I can actually do demos a lot faster. And he was like, well, how so? Well, here's an example. Docker run my demo. Boom. I had WebLogic up and running with my Java EE application. And he was like, okay, well, how did you install WebLogic? Well, I didn't install WebLogic. It's inside the container. Well, where's this container running? In this computer. So WebLogic is not installed in your computer. I'm like, well, technically it is running on my computer, but it's not installed in the computer. It's just a container. So, well, what if you want to run two demos at the same time? Well, then I'm going to create another Docker file for another demo. And then I have two containers up and running. Well, but don't you have to have the port number? How's it going to config? You have to change the port. It's like, no, just map to a different port. So he started like realizing that, wow, that's actually cool. And we were able to demonstrate that at customer visits very easily. Like our field started to adopt that. But it still wasn't necessarily a customer problem, but it was solving some problems that we had, at least for our own needs. Eventually, I felt like, you know what? I think we should make this official. I think we should go and officialize these Docker files and promote, because it is solving a problem to us, but maybe it would also solve other problems to other people. So we felt like, okay, I want to put this thing on GitHub. GitHub already existed at that time. This was around 2017, I think, 2016, 17. Yeah. And yeah, Docker was just starting and GitHub existed for a few years already. And I thought, you know what, I'm gonna put this on GitHub. So I went to GitHub and I was just a PM. The org organization on GitHub was already taken. So it's github.com/oracle. Somebody already took that. So I emailed the support team at GitHub and I said, hey, I'm an Oracle employee, as you can see by the email that I'm writing from. And I'm contacting you guys because we have a project to push to GitHub and we need to get a hold of the Oracle organization. But the Oracle organization is locked by this ghost user that has no activity on GitHub. That was exactly the case. Like, if you went to github.com/oracle at the time, it would end up on this account that had zero activity. Somebody just created and never used. So I said, hey, I'd like to get a hold of this /Oracle as a GitHub organization. And the GitHub support was like, sure, yeah, done.
Nice.
So next week, I was like, okay, now I have the Oracle organization. I'm going to create a repo here. And I created the Docker-images. And I uploaded the Docker file for WebLogic. And then I wrote a blog post about it. And folks in the Oracle community, not Java community, just the Oracle community, found that very interesting. And they started playing with Docker WebLogic inside Docker containers. And it was indeed helping them solve different problems for different reasons, like automated testing, demos and presentations to customers, or even actual production. Although at the time we were not promoting that it was production ready. But yeah, I mean, serve yourself. If you feel comfortable with the idea of making this a production grade instance of a logic, go for it. Well, eventually, a couple months later, the VP of WebLogic, the VP of product, messaged me, hey, Bruno, we are actually interested in these Docker images. Can you explain to us how does it work? It's like, sure thing. So I explained and did a demo to the product team, and it became an official thing. And today, if you go to Oracle on GitHub and Docker-images, you're going to see the files there. I'm one of the top contributors. I wrote most of the Docker files there. Well, not most of the Docker files, but I set the standard for how the Docker files should be written and the shell scripts, etc. Now the repo has lots of Docker files for many different Oracle products. So, it is an interesting story because it showed like, hey, I was proactive. I went to learn by myself to, how to do certain things. I promoted the work among folks that I knew would be interested. And then eventually I promoted the work to folks who I knew would take it to the next level. And I did lots of presentations at conferences at the time. talking about WebLogic and containers and Docker and etc. and container optimization, many common topics. And I also influenced different Oracle product teams to write their own Docker files to also bring more products into this concept of deploying Oracle products inside containers. So it was a big thing. And to me, I always highlight this as one of my major achievements in my career. Getting Oracle, a company that is very, at least at the time, was very conservative, very afraid of trying things out just for the sake of trying. And I did that, and I influenced other teams doing the same thing. So I think anyone can achieve similar results, but you gotta try. And once you have something to show, you gotta be able to back it up and support and sell and promote and influence. So yeah, that would be my takeaway.
Amazing. Yeah, I think the lesson of being able to back it up, I think it's very important. And the way you brought value and you showed the outcome, I think that's perfect. That's
Yeah.
how we should show how much value we brought to the table. I think that's a way to also help other developers to learn something new.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. And in your opinion, what's the importance of having a mentor as a Java developer?
Well, I think if nothing else, it's about having someone that you trust that you can go to and ask questions. I mean, of all the reasons, that is the one reason I will always think of as always present. A mentor can help us see things that we were not seeing before. It's like, tell me what I don't know. Like, tell me what I should know. Which in a way, it's again going back to university and school and formal education. That's the number one reason people go to school, so they can learn the things that they should learn, because they don't know what they should learn. And that's what a teacher does. A teacher will teach you about something, but most importantly, they will teach you what you should learn, right? For whatever intent you have. I mean, if your intention is to be a doctor, yeah, then you go to medical school instead of law school, and vice versa. But point is, they will tell you what you should learn to achieve what you want to learn. And I think a mentor and the teacher, they're not that different. And it's maybe just the specific area. Like a mentor is usually, career-wise, lifestyle-wise, or some particular problem. That movie where Will Smith helps men find women and how to how to build a relationship with women is an interesting movie. I think it's the Hinge, not the Hinge, the Hinge, something like that. It's a Will Smith movie. And it's a good movie. It's a fun movie, but basically, a mentor is, let me help you by sharing either my own experience or by sharing someone else's experience that I had touch with. And then what you hear from the mentor is, new different ways of doing something, of trying something. That's super valuable. I myself probably have had maybe 4 or 5 mentors in my life. None of them were formal. Like, you are my mentor and I am your mentee. We never had that sort of relationship. I always took friends and previous managers that I had a great relationship with, or parents, anybody who I felt like I could go and ask questions. I always had somebody that was my mentor for something, and in different areas as well. But if folks don't feel like they have somebody, then going for a formal mentorship program is an option. Sometimes maybe a person doesn't have anybody to go to. Yeah, maybe you need a mentor. Only you gonna know, like only the person only yourself will know whether you need a mentor or not. And if you don't know if you need a mentor, it's probably because you do need a mentor. That's the other thing.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's so important to have a mentor because we save so much time. Like a mentor gives you an insight that you just stop for a while and say, "Oh my God, I would never think about that." And you
Yeah.
just save so much time. It's amazing. Like this, how much you learn from a mentor. And by the way, the movie you said is Hitch.
Hitch. There you go.
Hitch. Hitch
Yeah,
from
it's a
with Will Smith.
yeah. It's a funny movie. Nothing about it's all about love, actually. It's a romance kind of comedy style movie. But the point is, yeah, you need somebody to show you what you don't know. We all need somebody to show us what we don't know so we can know what to learn. And once you know what to learn, then we can use whatever resources or techniques we can or prefer to go learn. I prefer to learn by myself, by going after the knowledge myself. But I don't wake up one day, it's like, today I should learn about this thing. That doesn't work. I always go to people like, hey, anything else, anything you would think I should be learning about, whether it's about coaching, whether it's about programming, whether it's about managing people, whether it's about work-life balance or finance or whatever, investing. It I always go to people like anything particular that I should be learning about. And I always get some very valuable answers. And then I start my learning journey.
Yeah. And it's also important to have a mentor who achieved what you want. Otherwise, doesn't
Oh,
work very well.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. A mentor has to have similar journey that you are going through or you want to go through. Yeah,
Yeah.
It's about sharing experiences, right?
Yeah, because it's really quite dangerous to take advice from someone who didn't achieve what you want or from someone who doesn't do the work.
Yeah, exactly.
So I also have to be careful on that. But if you pick a mentor who achieved what you want, then it's fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So what books or courses would you recommend for Java developers?
I have no idea, man. Like I said, it's been a long time that I don't work on a daily basis with Java programming. I consider myself a Java developer. I do some Java coding here and there, but I haven't gotten anything new in particular to go learn. Whatever I need to learn or I want to learn, just go online and go tackle that particular problem. I was doing the advent of code from last year, and I stopped on day 5 for a variety of reasons. But one of the reasons was challenging. It was quite challenging. I mean, it was just only day 5, but it was about sorting complex or tricky sorting techniques and algorithms to use that I didn't have the foundational knowledge to go and solve the problem. But I remember day 4, not sure if it was day 4, day 3, it had this particular problem. The file had this, it was a file with lots of letters, like maybe four letters spread out through the document. And the goal was to find where the word Christmas is laid out in this file, how often the word Christmas appears in the file. And it's not Christmas with CH, it was just XMAS. It was an interesting problem because you have this major matrix of letters. And my first implementation was, well, maybe I can just go and search for the letter X, and then I can look around this matrix, like this two-dimensional matrix or array of elements, and figure out where the next letter is M, and then just go and navigate in that direction. But then I quickly realized, man, that for loop will be complex as hell. So instead of doing that, I was like, oh, maybe there is a better technique here, and maybe get sub matrices, right? Within that. And then I have a much smaller matrix to scan through. That was a lot easier. So, I mean, the click of get small matrices and then lay them out in a single dimension, that is a little bit easier to parse. So that trick was interesting. And I felt like, how do I do this thing? And yeah, AI to the rescue, right? Just give me, because I had the idea of the solution in my head, but I was lazy enough to code. So I'm like, okay, I know what I want to do. I know how the program should work, but I'm lazy on actually coding the for loop and the for loop and the inner for loop and the inner for loop. So I'm just like, okay, ChatGPT, give me a code that does this, this, and this. It's
My
like, boom,
God.
here's a piece of code. So
How many loops? Like 4 loops?
I don't know, like only two actually.
Oh, okay.
It's only two. One for scanning all the matrices, right? All the
Okay.
matrices, and then the second loop to see if that small matrix for the enough amount of letters contains the word that I'm looking for. So, yeah, problem solved. But then I learned, how to break down the matrix into a smaller size, so I can parse that. I think, and that's how we learn at the end of the day. If you don't know what you're looking for, you go by trial and error. But if you know what you're looking for, it becomes a lot easier to learn. And that's, going back to the mentorship program is an interesting way of learning.
Yeah, you are probably like there is a name for your learning style. Basically, you learn by doing.
It is a
Uh,
way, yeah. But it's one of the my take is that it's one of the most expensive, time consuming ways of learning. Because you don't know if you're progressing until you actually progress.
yeah, so you are a kinesthetic learner. There's a name.
Kinesthetic. That's a
Kinesthetic.
great name. I should put that on a t-shirt. I'm a kinesthetic learner.
Yeah, you're a kinesthetic learner, which means that you learn by doing. You learn by, you know, hands-on. You go for it, and that's the easiest way for you to learn. So there are people who learn better by watching videos or listening to audio or analyzing charts. So, but yeah, in your case, you are a kinesthetic learner. So, and do you have any personal development book in mind? Because those are very important as well for developers.
You see that some of my books here. There is one book that I like a lot, and I go for it as more like a curiosity thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a book that you go to read for the sake of reading, because it's like a Bible. But I really like it because I worked in this problem space for a few years, and it's this book of here.
Enterprise integration patterns. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's a very thick book. Like this is my phone. You can see by the scale. It's a third of my phone. And it's not a small phone.
So it's more than 1,000 pages, I guess.
Let me see. No, 700 pages.
Okay, quite close.
700 pages. But for anyone implementing messaging systems, it's literally designing, building, and deploying messaging solutions. It's considered the Bible of messaging systems. It's a great book. It has a lot of Java examples, but also some .NET examples. I'm not sure if it has other language examples, but Java was a common language at the time that this was written. And I love it because it's very practical. And one of the things that it has is this cheat sheet. Where is it? There you go. It has this cheat sheet in the beginning. You turn the cover, and you get a cheat sheet like this.
Nice.
So it has like patterns and brief description, names and descriptions, and then the page where you can learn about the patterns of messaging solutions to specific problem space. The reason I got this book was at the time I was working at this. I actually wrote a component for Twitter for a integration framework that I could easily connect to Twitter and consume the tweets coming in real time, and then do things with the tweets. I could parse and analyze sentiment. I could figure it out which language that tweet was written on, how often that tweet appeared in a particular time frame. And I could do a lot of transformation and playing with Twitter as a source of events. And funny enough, playing with Twitter for fun actually helped me land a job right before I went to Oracle. Because I was doing a lot of things and I was speaking at conferences and etc. And then a company actually called me, hey, would you like to be our tech lead for our SMS distribution system? And I was like, SMS? Yeah, we have this business where our subscribers expect SMS for news, sports news, TV news, whatever, right? And I was like, huh, interesting. And I took the job because I was job searching at the time. I was like, well, I want to try something different. And then this guy came to me and like, yeah, we'd like to have you on the team building this infrastructure for delivering SMS at scale. So within 3 months, I had this book with me on my desk every day. And within 3 months, we implemented an SMS delivery system using Java, using Apache Camel, using Apache Active MQ, and what else we used? I think we used some like Mule service bus. I think we had a service bus. Also, we had a message system and a service bus integrated with the telco company that was receiving the request for sending the SMS. It was a fascinating project because we designed it so fast that we hit the limit of the API of the telco company. The telco company was like, yeah, no, you have to slow down. You cannot send that many requests per second. You have to send no more than, 10 requests per second for sending SMS. And here's the thing. You have a distribution system. You cannot send faster than 10 requests per second. How do you fix that? Well, there is here a pattern for throttling. Look at that. Aggregator, container reacher, filter, control bus. Let's see, message bus, broker, guaranteed deliver was reused, but not message filter, message router, translator. There was the messaging gateway, routing slip, selective consumer learn. Yeah, I think we used this one. It was a control bus, but there was a throttling. I don't see it as a throttling thing here. Anyhow, we used a bunch of these for sure.
Nice.
Yeah, messaging gateway. The messaging gateway is one. So it was pretty cool. We also had to ensure that we didn't send the SMS more than once. So we made sure that we kept a copy of the successful sent messages to the broker. And it was fascinating. I loved that project. And it was a quick project, but we went to production really fast because it was like almost like fire and forget. There was nothing to do, and we ran like a cron job. There was no web interface, no user interaction. Here's a database of all phone numbers. Here's the subscription information about the content, and here's the content. All you have to do is, collect that information, get a huge list, and process. So
Yeah.
yeah, I love this Duke. I love this book because it's something that actually is applicable for many problem spaces, even outside messaging solutions.
Yeah, I think that's amazing because from what you told me, you definitely have the mindset of a software engineer. And what I see nowadays is that software engineers are a lot more valuable. Actually, the companies are not looking for programmers anymore, right? Because maybe back in the days, they would give you something, hey, this is the use case, and you should do that. But nowadays it's different. Nowadays, the companies give you a problem, and it's up to you to figure it out. So
Pretty
this
much, yeah.
mindset, this mindset of being a software engineer instead. So what do I mean by that? I mean that to be curious about exploring new technologies, and also like to see a problem and to think of ways to connect the dots between what you know and what you don't know, and be curious to explore the things you don't know so that you can connect the dots in the end and solve this problem as a software engineer. So there's a lot of this essence of being curious to understand, oh, okay, how this thing works. I want to figure this out. And by using our foundational knowledge and being curious to learn those things you need to solve this particular problem, that's a very powerful skill to have. Like, because you don't need to know to understand 100% of one technology. Instead, having this mindset of being a software engineer takes you to another level, and it helps you to get the best jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that.
Awesome. Bruno, thank you so much. I know it was a long conversation, but it was
No
so
worries.
good. So many insights. And I'm pretty much sure that you who are watching us also learned a lot watching or listening to us, right? So thank you so much, Bruno, for your time. I had a lot of fun and I learned a lot in this conversation. And I hope to see you in a conference. Hope to see you. I don't know. Maybe if I go one day to Canada and I go to Vancouver, I will visit you. And yeah, hope to see you in a conference, or if you come to Dublin again,
Yeah, sounds good, man.
be happy to host you.
Sounds good. Yeah, can't wait to see it happening. Have a good day,
Awesome.
man.
Thank you so much, Bruno. Cheers.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.